I've been muted. So we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Iman Garrett Price. I am the manager of programs and strategic partnerships at Emancipation Park Conservancy. Just to give you all a little bit of background on the Conservancy, as well as Emancipation Park. Emancipation Park was founded in 1872 by 4 formerly enslaved men. In very early acts of cooperative economics, they pulled together about $800 and purchased the 10, now 11.7 acres of land that the park sits on today. Fast forward to about 2014, and Emancipation Park Conservancy was formed, and we serve as the fundraising for the park. And our core focus areas are economic empowerment, education, and health and wellness. Last year, we launched the Bridging the Gap Financial Literacy Program. Launched last spring. We've had a pretty successful program. We've hosted about 25 to 30 workshops, and we have been able to help at least 700 individuals in the Houston area. We did begin a partnership with the National Association of Black Accountants earlier this year as well. And through our first virtual workshop with NABA Houston chapter, we have to date, over 450 individuals have accessed that workshop and that resource. So we are very thankful to have the National Association of Black Accountants as a community partner. Today, we also have joining us the Alliance. The Alliance is another nonprofit here that has some absolutely amazing resources for those that might be experiencing economic hardships. They also have some health and wellness resources, and Anna is going to share a little bit more about that a bit later. So now I will introduce you to our panelists. Today, we have joining us Quadir Williams, or Q. He is the Managing Director and Financial Advisor for the AFP Group. Q will be our first presenter, and he's going to be focusing on helping you learn how to build your emergency savings. During Q's presentation, he will be a bit interactive, so if you want to hop in and ask him some questions while he's presenting, feel free to do so, and he might even be asking you a couple of questions as well. After Q presents, we'll be joined by Anna Gonzalez. She is the FEC Program Manager for the Alliance, and her presentation is going money management and crisis budgeting during a pandemic. As I mentioned earlier, the Alliance has some really great resources, including their Economic Empowerment Center for those that are really looking to get their financial footing together, and also who are experiencing financial disasters. They're able to provide resources for that as well. So Q, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and we can hop right into your presentation. Go ahead, Q.
All right, thank you very much for having me. Good evening, everyone. And I'm just going to take a couple of quick seconds or not quick seconds, but a couple of minutes, just to talk to you about some things that I talk to with all of my clients. A lot of it sounds pretty intuitive, stuff that you've probably heard already, but hopefully we can maybe go one more step further and maybe give you some information that you may not know, or if you know it all, just to re-bang it into our heads, because when it comes to finances, there is no secret. There is no secret way to build wealth. We kind of know it all. It's the execution of it that we kind of miss. So I'm going to pull up my screen right now, and give me one moment while I figure this out. All right, it looks like my screen is sharing. Is that right? Perfect. So I titled it just simply How to Prepare for the Next One. It's only a couple of slides. Most of this will be kind of conversation. But what is the next one? Right now, we're in a pandemic, which none of us ever thought we would be in. Obviously, we never lived through one. Interestingly enough, just a fun fact, Wimbledon and some other companies have pandemic insurance. So this definitely was forethought by some people that this could happen, and they prepared for it properly. But for us as individuals and maybe even small businesses, the next one could be anything. Could be the loss of a job, could be getting sick, could be obviously a pandemic, just situations that could have you at a loss of income or suppressed income for a significant period of time. So emergency savings is how we prepare for that. Um, I'll start with the value of emergency savings. Many times I get people that say, oh, I either have a lot of income coming in, I'm not worried about savings, or oh, I have a little bit of money saved, or oh, I have investments. Emergency savings is meant to be cash, not an investment, not your home or anything like that. It's meant to be cash that you have on hand in case something goes wrong with the economy or with your job or anything like that. Because if you have your money all invested and we run into a recession, well, that $10,000 now turns into $5,000, plus or minus whatever taxes that you have to pull out of it and pay if it's in your IRA or your 401k or anything like that. It's meant to be cash in your bank, money market, high yield savings, anything that you can get access to immediately if you want to. And by immediately, I mean 24 hours or less. How much is appropriate? People ask me all the time, how much should I have saved? Well, it usually depends on your job. And by your job, I mean, how hard would it be to replace the current income that you have? My absolute bare minimum is 3 months of your income. I don't even like that, but that's my absolute bare minimum. 6 months is my sweet spot. That's what I love. And some people it's 12 months. People have executive positions. People have positions where if they lose their job today, it would be very, very hard to replace that income. Those are times where 12 months would be a little bit more appropriate. Um, if you're, let's say, I know there's some physicians, some ER physicians, that if they were to lose their job today, due to the lack of ER physicians in certain areas, they would be able to find income pretty soon. Or if they were a teacher, many teachers feel very confident that if they were to lose their income today, they could find income pretty soon. 3 months would be the bare minimum for them after some deep discussion, but usually 6 months is what I like to see. And it's going to take time to build 6 months for many people, and that's totally okay. Um, Misconceptions about emergency savings. I said one of them already, but emergency savings is not your investment. It is not your Robinhood account. Oh, I have 3,000 in my Robinhood account. That's not your emergency savings. That's your investments. Two totally different things play two totally different roles. Emergency savings should not be credit cards. That is very, very high interest. Any bad situation that I've ever found financially, at the core of that has been credit card debt. It's almost like a cancer that'll eat through the rest of your finances. So it's not credit card debt. And also, emergency savings is not your normal savings. Now, we all have savings for things that we want to accomplish. Saving for a trip, for example, I plan on going to South Africa as soon as this thing is over with. So I've been putting aside money for that. You may know that you need a washing machine coming up. You may know that you need a new car and you need a down payment for that. That is not your emergency savings. That's just your savings. Your emergency savings is a break in case of emergency, pandemic, that will allow you to be able to keep your lifestyle afloat and keep things afloat so that you don't have to make short-term decisions when things go wrong. In fact, if you look at any type of wealth that's been built, most of it has been built by the ability for people to make long-term decisions, people to sacrifice now and make long-term. But if you don't have the emergency savings, when something bad goes wrong, you're in a crisis, and now you can't make long-term decisions. You have to kind of fix whatever the problem is now. So I'm gonna, the second thing, and let me pull this down here so that I can see if anybody has questions. Oh, nope, okay. The second thing that you want to do to get prepared for a loss of a job or any type of pandemic or just to be fully prepared is to position your investments properly. Check your risk tolerance. Make sure that however risky that you feel like your money needs to be, that is what your investments represent. And if they don't, rebalance them appropriately. Some of you may need to see a financial advisor for this. Some of you manage your own investments. But what I would not do is try to time the market. We just recently had, I don't know the exact number today, but a 30 to 40% upswing since March. There's many, many people that's waiting on the sideline with cash saying, oh, the market's going to drop again. I'm waiting for that. Oh, the market's going to drop again. I'm waiting for that. Or people who got out too early and said, man, look at me. I got out of the market and I didn't even take the dive that the market took in February, March. Well, guess what? The S&P is up 8% this year. And so if you never got in, yeah, you missed the dive, but you also missed the rise. And that's 8% of your money that you missed out on. So make sure that your investments have your risk tolerance in mind, but trying to jump in and play double dutch with the market is usually a failing recipe. And the third thing up is to, there we go. I will look into securing a HELOC loan. Now, this is for homeowners. This is for homeowners that have equity in their homes. What is a HELOC loan? HELOC stands for Home Equity Line of Credit. This is much different than a home equity loan. This is a line of credit, meaning you don't pay interest on it until you use it. So let's say if you have a house that's worth $250,000, and let's say you have $100,000 in that you owe. Well, you have $150,000 in equity. You can get a HELOC loan on that. Let's just say if you got a HELOC loan for $50,000. Well, you get it when you have a job. That way, when you don't have a job, you still have that line of credit. That keeps you from going into your 401k and when the stocks are down or paying penalties or things like that to help you get back on your feet. Also, you only pay interest on what you use. So if you have a $50,000 HELOC loan, other than the fees, if you only spend $2,000, you're only paying interest on that $2,000. Now, all of these things, I would suggest that someone talk to a financial advisor before implementing, but these are three things that could help you be prepared for the next time an unexpected emergency happens. That's, again, my name is Quadir Williams. I'm with the AFP Group. We happen to be the oldest financial planning firm in all of Houston, 52 years old. And our number and our website is right here below. And I think I'm going to send it back to you unless there's any questions.
So we do have a question. Our first question is from Cecil Garrick, and he asks, in terms of emergency savings, how long does it usually take to get to 3 months or 3 to 6 months of savings?
That's a great question. And that brings me to something that I forgot because I wasn't looking at my phone for my notes. So it varies for everyone. Um, if you have very high income and very low expenses, you could probably get there pretty quickly. But if you're very low expenses, I'm sorry, very low income, and your expenses is almost right there with your income, this may take you a year to do. But I would make this one of your first priorities, especially after you get your home, one of your first priorities as an adult, because I forget what study, but they say between the ages of 35 and 55, this is when events happen that are unexpected that change the course of your life. This is when divorce happens. This is when somebody, a parent, a child, or yourself may get sick. This is when a business that you thought of when you were 25 goes out of business. This is when um, you lose your job that you've had for 15 or 20 years and you just kind of thought that you would have it forever, right? All of these things that kind of put people um, off track, and it takes them years, sometimes a decade, or sometimes they never get back on track. These things happen primarily because there was not enough emergency savings to get them through when the unexpected event happened, right? Disability insurance is something else I would suggest everyone have. But so how long does it take? As long as it takes. And if you find yourself to the point where you can't save anywhere close enough to get to that level, then we need to look at your lifestyle. And we need to say, why is it that you can't save a healthy amount of money each month? If you make $3,000 a month after taxes and you're spending $2,800 a month, the problem isn't savings yet. The problem is, what can we do about that lifestyle to allow you to save more? Or what can we do about that income that will allow you to save more? So again, it all depends on your expenses versus your income. But I would say as long as it takes, and if it takes a year, I've had clients where that's all we focused on for a year, and that's what we did. My second thing, if I can quickly say something, is many people have, well, debt versus emergency savings. Where should I put my money to first? Um, it all depends on the debt. One, it would depend on the interest rate of the debt. And second, it would depend on the type of debt. If the debt is a credit card, right, then I will almost always say pay off the credit card first. Because if an event happened where you needed money and you were out of emergency savings, you can go back to the credit card, right? We don't want that, but that's a possibility for you. If you have debt that does not open up money for you, then I would balance and I would lean towards savings first and then paying off the debt. For example, if you have an installment loan of $10,000 that you borrowed, well, if you pay off that debt, you're not getting $10,000 back. So when it comes to that versus emergency savings, we're going to tackle both, but I'm leaning towards emergency savings. Emergency savings is the last example I'll make or analogy I'll make is like a foundation of a house. Many people, when they see a house, they see everything above the ground. And imagine if you bought your house and you told the builder, don't worry about what's under the ground. Nobody can see it anyway. Just build higher, make it prettier, make it prettier. Well, yeah, it's going to look pretty. That's kind of what everybody says to me when they say, I want to invest, I want to build wealth. But then when that hurricane comes and it knocked that beautiful house off of its foundation, then you have a bigger problem than what you started with. So emergency savings is the foundation of any successful financial plan. And those are just a couple of things to consider while getting it. Thanks for asking.
Well, thank you so much, Q. I just want to remind everyone that you can always drop your questions either in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'll all be circling back at the end of both presentations to do a wraparound Q&A. So if you all do think for a moment and decide you have some more questions for Q, then we will have an opportunity to ask those questions momentarily. And now we will move on to Anna Gonzalez from the Alliance. Thanks for joining us tonight, Anna.
Hi, good afternoon or good evening. Okay, so my name is Ana Gonzalez and I'm with the Alliance. I am the Houston Financial Empowerment Center Program Manager. So let's see if I can do this correctly. Please don't mess up. Okay, here we go. Let me know if you can see my screen. Here we go. Can you see that? Okay, good. So I'm going to talk about money management, crisis budgeting during the pandemic. So here we go. So an overall strategy during a crisis. So of course, dealing with the uncertainty. What do I do now? Review income and expenses, prioritizing debts, create a crisis budget, get ahead of the issues, and prepare for negotiation. So dealing with the uncertainty, what do I do now is a question everyone will ask themselves, especially during this time. It's about reviewing your income and expenses, what's coming in and what's going out, and really sitting down with your family, your spouse, and being able to have these conversations. You want to prioritize your debt. So you want to make sure what is first, what is the most important thing that I need to pay. You want to create a crisis budget. When I say that, I always ask, how much money do I actually have? I want to know exactly what am I looking at as far as numbers. I know that sometimes people will say, well, I might have $200 coming in at the end of the month. No, you really want to sit when you're doing a budget, you really want to work with the numbers that you have. It's not a what if, it's what you have. So you want to get ahead of the issues. And this is meaning you want to be able to plan something. You want to have a plan of action. And you want to prepare for a negotiation. And when I say that is you want to be able to prepare yourself for contacting your creditors and being able to have a negotiation strategy to be able to move forward. So prepare yourself to deal with the uncertainty. So feeling overwhelmed and feeling under siege is something that everyone right now is feeling, but you want to be able to take control of the situation. So COVID is something that we did not expect. It's something that we're dealing with. It's been a few months now. And so you really want to take control of your own situation. So when I say that is identifying your situation and where you can be proactive. That I'm going to say proactive quite a bit because you want to be able to take control of the situation and start working on a plan. You want to empower yourself by understanding credit, learning your options, and again, being proactive. So I was really impressed with Mr. Williams because, he does talk about savings. Savings is so important. A lot of times, we just don't have that. And so this is something that looking at the big picture, what can we do to start saving? Be familiar with the circle of influence in your community. So circle of influence is what is around you. What are some nonprofits? What do they offer? What are churches offering right now? What are some of the things? What are your resources within your community? I like to think of my circle of influence is what is the city doing? What is the community doing as a whole? I know that we have a lot of people who are uncertain about, rental assistance and evictions and mortgages. And so you want to look at your community as a resource. So review income and expenses. Account for all sources of income. Consider, sorry, let me move this over so I can read that. Consider how to increase revenue and cash flow. So look at your income. What's your cash flow like? So as a monthly, sitting down and looking at your budget. I like to look at, there's so many things on the internet that you can pull. You can use a money tracker, and it's basically just sitting down with your family, your spouse, and going through what are you spending. For eligibility for benefits, public or private, you want to look at, do I qualify for unemployment? Is there an assistance program for children? When I say that, I wasn't able to, apply for Medicaid before, but my situation has changed. Can I apply for Medicaid for my children now? Healthcare, what does my employer offer? Is there anything that he offers during this time? In-kind sources. I always think of nonprofits, again, community resources, food banks, finding out where they are in your community. And nonprofits, again, formula, diapers, products for seniors, really looking at your community as a whole. Alternative interim work, maybe you lost your job or maybe they've cut hours. What is something that you can do in the meantime? So food delivery, it could be Postmates, it could be, Uber Eats, something to kind of just keep you afloat. Contract tracing right now, they're hiring because of COVID, that pays fairly well. Looking at that as an alternative. Reviewing income and expenses. Again, review expenses and consider possible reduction. So non-essentials Can services be paused or suspended? Do I have to have cable now? No. Is there a way that I can pause that service, or is there a way that I could suspend that service? And if I do that, am I going to get penalized? So you want to look at that. What can be eliminated completely for now? What payments are immediate and need to be addressed? So that's a powerful question. What are some of the things that need to be paid now? What payments can be delayed? And understanding the consequences. So when we talk to our clients, we say, okay, these are things that if you were to suspend your service, or if you were to pause it for a short time, what are you looking at as far as consequences? Are you going to get charged an early fee for discontinuing your services with your internet service or with your cable company, or what have you? You want to look at the consequences. If I do this, is it going to put me in a bigger hole or in a worse situation than I'm already in? So you really want to take control of that and look at the consequences. To prioritize your debt, I always say this: you want to make sure that needs first, shelter. So making sure you have a place to live for you and your family. You need a roof over your head. So you need to think of that first. So mortgage and rent, that's most important. Utilities, you need to have gas, water, light. Some people say, do I really need a cell phone? Well, today and during these times, yes. How are you going to get a hold of your creditors? How are you going to get a hold of your family, parents, kids? So yes, it is important. Food, that's an essential. You need to have food for your family. You need to be able to make sure that you have that. And then of course, basic household items, toilet paper, diapers, formula, those are priority. So you want to look at that first. And then I always think everything is second. Everything else is second. So protections in place. We have clients who are getting public housing. Is there anything that is available to them? Is there a suspension? Is there a deduction? Is there something that we can reach out to housing and see if we can get some assistance? Student loan suspensions. I always make sure that I tell our clients that it's super important to know where your loans are located. Where are they located? They get sold all the time. Where are they at? Have you called the Department of Education? Do you know who owns your loans? Do you know who you should be making those payments to? Sometimes you could be paying somebody this month and next month you've been sold off to somebody else. So you really want to make sure that you track that. Setting those debts aside for the moment and keeping in mind when those protections expire. That is so important. I like to say, yes, it goes back to suspending or putting your, services on hold. What's going to happen afterwards? What's going to happen after they expire? If you have a protection in place for a student loan, what are you looking at afterwards? Are you going to get charged an additional, interest fee? You need to make sure that you know this. What happens when the protection is over? So keeping lines of credit open whenever possible for emergencies, filling the gap until income comes back. That means small payments in lieu of minimum payments or other arrangements. So going back to lines of credit, you want to make sure you have that open. I know the last presenter mentioned this. You don't want to rely on that, but you want to be able to, in case of emergency, you have that. So you want to make sure that you have a line of credit. When it comes to payments, this is where it gets very, very tricky. You want to make sure that even though you have a payment due, especially right now with COVID, you want to make sure that you're in contact with your credit card, with your creditors, because you want to say, this is the situation. Is there a way that we can lower that minimum rate? And if I do that, am I going to get a higher interest rate at the end? But making sure that you keep in communication, because you want to make sure that you're open to that negotiation. Okay. Creating a crisis budget. So apply every dollar of known income to priority expenses. You want to know exactly where your money is going. You want to keep an eye on the timing of cash flow when your money arrives. So when you're getting paid, your unemployment funds, this can be alimony, this can be child support. You want to know when your money is going to be received. You want to break up your payments if needed on priorities to keep the show of good faith. So this is what I always say. You want to make sure that priorities are first And you want to make sure that the rest, the seconds of your credit card, you still want to continue to make your payments. But you want to make sure that you are in communication with your creditors to see if you can lower that minimum payment, because you don't want it to snowball. You don't want to end up where you're owing everyone. You really want to make sure, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to keep in communication with your creditors. I know clients sometimes are like, I just don't want to make that call. It's better to make the call than not make the call, because you want to be able to, control that situation. You want to empower yourself with that. Okay, here we go. So getting ahead of the issues. I just mentioned this, contacting your creditors before due dates and before they contact you. You want to make sure that if you've missed a payment, that you contact them as soon as possible. You do not want to wait. You want to make sure that when you're calling your creditors, that you keep notes of all your conversations. You want to make sure that you have a name of the person you spoke to, the number you called, the time and date that you spoke to them, the substance of the call. What did you talk about? The next one is follow up in writing. I always say it's so important after you get off a phone call, you want to email your creditor with the person that you spoke to. That's why it's so important to make sure you have their contact information. You want to send a summary of what you discussed. Keep everything in writing. This is a paper trail for you. This is actually a way of protecting yourself. If your state allows it, record the conversation. We have recordings on our phones all the time. Make sure that you record that. You want to make sure that you record the conversation, the part of the conversation where you made the arrangement. And lastly, don't let things just happen to you. So when I say that, it's important to make sure you take control. Don't just avoid the phone call. Take control of the situation and be above it. So meaning you are in control of your own destiny. Preparing for negotiation. What is the best scenario and what is the worst? What is the worst thing that could happen? What leverage do I have? How can I use the point of leverage in negotiations? Is there a moratorium in place? When does it end? Look at your federal and state and local. What are some resources that they're offering right now? What do I do? And what is the creditor? What do I do and the creditor have to lose? What do you lose if you're wanting to talk to them and have that communication and have that conversation of, can I lower my minimum payment? And what do you have to lose? You need to just at least be able to negotiate with them. Ask for what you need, not what you think the creditor wants to hear. And this is, I think, is very important. You have control. I think there is this scary thing about calling your creditors, calling your loan provider, calling your servicer. It is scary, but you would feel so much better making that phone call and making those conversations and having those conversations to be able to move forward. All right. Monitor and empower yourself, continuing to review the sources of income, reductions or delay in expense payments, staying in contact with creditors, making sure that you call them on a monthly. If your company has agreed, if your credit card has agreed to accept a delayed payment, make sure you have that in writing again. Make sure you have something to substantiate that conversation. Keep an eye on the long term and lay out different scenarios. If this doesn't happen, what am I looking at? What else could happen? You just don't want it to snowball. You want to make sure that you take that control. And again, how can we help? So the Houston Financial Empowerment Center, what we do is we are a counseling service. It's free to anyone in the community. There is no income requirements. We work with undocumented clients. We're not a coaching service. We are a counseling service. So we make those difficult calls with you. We negotiate payments with you. We contact your student loans. We help you with rental and mortgage assistance, especially right now. We are looking at the community for resources. We're helping with utility help, applying for those applications, getting those documents, making sure that you can apply for those services. And of course, financial counseling, planning for the future. So yeah, that is what we do in a whole, as a whole. Our information is on the last slide. So of course, the Alliance, the Houston Financial Empowerment, is in partnership with the City of Houston, the Department of Complete Communities, and of course, the Alliance. So I have our contact information. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to contact us at any time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna, for sharing with us. At this time, if anyone has any questions for Anna, if you could drop those in the Q&A box or the comment, we'll be sure to get that information to you. One of the questions that I do have for you, Anna, I know that there's a specific page, a specific City of Houston page where people can find more information about your economic empowerment centers or your financial empowerment centers. Would you mind telling us about that, or dropping that also in the chat box so people know where?
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that. So we do have a website. It's Houston Financial Empowerment Center. I'll put the link in the chat box. But it has all of our information. It has how to contact us, how to make appointments, how to schedule things. You know, we have 2 locations. However, we're working remotely, but that hasn't stopped us, which is great. So we've increased our numbers. We have so many clients and we're super excited. But we are located at multi-service centers. So one office is at the Magnolia Multi-Service Center on the East End, and then the other is at Acres Homes Multi-Service Center off of Washington. But I'll put the link, that way you guys can look. And yeah, you know, we're happy to help you whenever, you know, you're ready.
Thank you all so much. And I have some questions myself. So Q, you can chime in here as well. Going back to figuring out how, or the pace in which you save your 3 to 6 months of you know, your income or your expenses, is there a particular percentage for which you think people should put towards that savings goal? Or again, is that just dependent on your income versus your expenses versus your debt? Or is there like a set amount of percentage, or the least amount of percentage that you should be putting towards that each month?
I'm sure if you go on the internet, somebody has some rule of thumb. I don't. I've learned that everybody's situation is just completely different, right? And I do want to say something for those who are listening. 4 to 6 months of your income is not as important as 4 to 6 months of your expenses. I'll give you an example. If you live way below your means and you make $20,000 a month, but your expenses are only $5,000 or $6,000 a month, then saving $120,000 isn't necessary. You can save $36,000 and still get through. But everyone's situation is so different. I would say it would be tough. I don't even want to. I would say it's different for everybody. I can't even say a rule of thumb. I'm sorry, but if you can get to that point in a year, or let me put it like that, that's a good yearly goal. If you can get to the point where you have your emergency savings in a year, that's a great place to start. Some people could do it a little faster. Some people do it a little longer. But if it takes you 6 years to get your emergency savings together, we have to really look at your finances and make some changes. So let's put it like that: 1 year to get 3 to 6 months.
Thank you. And again, I just want to remind everyone, we're open for questions. You all are, thank you again for joining, but you all are a quiet bunch tonight. I'll just wait a few more moments to see if anyone has any other questions. But if not, I will go ahead and take this time to thank our sponsor tonight. The Bridging the Gap program, the Bridging the Gap Financial Literacy Program is made possible through Veritex Community Bank. They are our sponsor for the remainder of we're very grateful for them, and we also have a schedule of 3 to 4 more workshops that we will be putting on the remainder of the year. Those will include home ownership and housing fairs and information, and it'll also include things like credit and debt management as well as predatory lending. So thank you again, Veritex Community Bank. We're very grateful for you, gracious that you have decided to continue to sponsor this program so that we can continue to make an impact. And I also want to take the time to share the information of our community partners. Again, those that have joined us tonight, we are in partnership with the National Association of Black Accountants, Houston chapter, and you can see their website listed. It's www.community.nabainc.org/Houston. They're our partner on this particular program, but they also have a plethora of lots of other programs and webinars and workshops that they do as well. So if you would like to check out what they have coming down the pipe, then you can definitely visit them on their website or their Facebook that is listed as well. The Alliance is our second community partner that joined us tonight that we're so grateful to have on our webinar. And you can find them, I believe Anna also added this in the chat box. Their website is www.thealliancetexas.org. I also added that link to their Houston Financial Empowerment Centers, where you can learn about all of the different resources that they have to help you prepare for and recover from a financial emergency. And I've also added as personal information. So if there's anyone, if you all think about this for a while and come back and decide that you have some questions for Anna, you can ask them. And Q, if you'd like to share your contact information, if people have any questions for you in the contact box, that would be great. Lastly, this is how you can find Emancipation Park Conservancy. Our website is www.epconservancy.org. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at EP Conservancy. All of our programs that we have, we've pivoted all of our programs this year, obviously, to virtual platforms due to this COVID-19 pandemic. So all of those programs can actually be found on YouTube, including our financial literacy workshop earlier this year that was geared towards pivoting during a pandemic. NABA was our partner on that as well. You can find that on our YouTube channel. Lastly, I just want to let you all know August is Black Philanthropy Month, and this is a month that we are shedding a lot of light on those African American and cultural institutions and nonprofits, and your financial support is always greatly appreciated. You can text 1872 to 243-725 to donate and support EPC programs and events. You can make a one-time donation, or you can become one of our 1872 supporters, donating an amount of $18.72 once a month. We would be grateful for that as well. So thank you all again for joining. Just rounding out again to no other questions in the comment box. I'm not seeing any questions there. Lastly, I'm going to go ahead and drop a link to our survey just so you can share a little bit more information about yourself and also about what you thought about the webinar tonight, what you'd like to see us cover moving forward. And if you do not catch that link right now, no worries. In the follow-up email, I will also send everyone a survey link so that you're able to complete that. And I saw you raise your hand, Q.
I just noticed that there's two different chat boxes, a Q&A and a regular one. There's people who have questions in the Q&A chat box.
I see now the Q&A while I was just talking. Sure, so we won't hop off and cover these. So our first question Do you have any suggestions on high yielding savings accounts to build our emergency fund?
Um, Me personally, not really, only because rates are so incredibly low that it's not even worth the paperwork for me to keep changing banks just to get the pennies of interest that I would get. But generally speaking, banks that are online banks that don't have brick and mortars, they're able to save a lot of money not having brick and mortars, and they could pass that on to you. So I think Ally is an online bank. Goldman Sachs has an online bank called Marcus. That's a high yield savings. And if you just Google high yield savings, a bunch of ones with interest rates will come up. They change all the time. I would try not to resist the urge of moving all over the place because the interest rate is so small anyway. It's uh, it's barely a thing. And the second one, I'll see if Anna has an app that she might think might be good for budget management. I do not.
Um, wow. So I always do Credit Karma, and let me tell you why. So it's not so much of a budget management, but it really gives you an understanding of credit because you're able to see your three credit scoring systems. You're able to see all three, so you're able to compare because they're different. The number's not going to be the same for Experian versus TransUnion. So I like to use Credit Karma. You want to be able to know what's on your credit report, and so you want to be aware of that consistently.
Perfect. And I personally use Excel for my budget, so I don't know. I'm old school. I apologize.
Yeah. Great. Well, again, I think that this time that yep, that does conclude all of our questions. But again, Anna and Hugh have both shared their contact information with you. I'll also share it in a follow-up email to all of our attendees. Thank you all so much again, and we hope that you're able to join us for our webinars in the coming months, and we'll be sending out more information about those soon. Thank you again, Anna and Hugh. We're very, very grateful to have you both in the Alliance and NABA as partners. And I hope that everyone has an amazing evening.
All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.